Perfect. Alrighty. Well, we can go ahead and kick things off to make, like I said, make sure we get the use of the full hour. But thank you all so much for joining us for the third session in our climate transitions workshop, making the most of career shifts. If we have not met before, if you were not at the previous sessions, hi, my name is Natalie Lavery. I head up marketing at Climate People. Climate People is a climate recruitment agency. Essentially, we work with job seekers and companies that are working on a climate solution of sorts and try to pair the two together with the main mission of mobilizing a workforce transition into climate. However, we're recruiters, but we also offer lots of resources like this with, again, hopefully the main goal of giving people the tools and the information that they need to transition their careers. So thanks again for joining us. And yeah, hopefully today we can deliver some insights so that you can be one of those millions of people that we're going to need working in this space very soon. Over to you, Mona.
Hi, I'm Mona Johnson. I'm a career coach at Mojo Career Coaching. Mojo is a full service coaching practice designed specifically for career changers looking to land their first climate roles. For over 7 years, I help clients with their professional collateral. So things like resumes, LinkedIn, cover letters, that kind of thing, their job search strategies, compensation negotiation, and more. I'm excited to be with you here today. Thanks, Natalie, for having me.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. So, about the series, as we mentioned, if you have been here before, you likely know this, but if this is your first session, this is part three of a four-part series covering all different elements of the climate job search and how you can best position yourself. In the previous two sessions, we talked about kind of identifying your climate career interests, pinpointing where you want to be and how to get there. Last month, we talked about transferable skills, the buzzword that a lot of people say, but rarely ever define. So Mona and I tried our best to define what transferable skills mean and how you can apply that to your job search. And today, it's a fun topic of the art of unlearning. And Mona's going to explain a little bit more what that means in a little bit. But essentially, unlearning all of the traditional job search tactics that you may have employed in the past and how maybe those aren't going to work for your climate job search. And then next month is going to be on networking and getting started and applying all the lessons that we've taught over the last will be 4 months and yeah, kicking it off and using those to launch into or continue on with your climate job search. So Mona's going to talk a little bit more about today's agenda and the art of unlearning.
All right, so Natalie will kick it off why previous techniques may not work, especially in climate. We'll define what is unlearning and how it can be helpful. We'll talk about how it's important to adjust your expectations for a climate job search and how to find a climate job. We'll do some clarifying around your industry value. There will be some independent work. You'll do a SWOT analysis, and then we'll break out into breakout rooms where you can share your SWOT with others and get suggestions, actionable suggestions from people in climate. So these are people just like you, looking to land their first jobs. So a lot of times people can relate to where you're at. We often see a lot of drop off when we move to breakout rooms. We hope you stick around because there's at least one thing to learn usually for everyone, and it's a great networking opportunity. At the end, we'll talk about tweaking your job search, and then if there's time, we'll have a Q&A.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you're just listening in, if you're busy doing something and you don't want to join the breakout room, you don't have to. You can stay in the main room and just turn your camera off and mute until we come back. There's no pressure to actually join the breakout room if you don't want to. And it will be 10 minutes. So there's no point in leaving for 10 minutes of waiting around. Cool. So yeah, as Mona mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why traditional techniques are a no-go and maybe why they're not working or you're not seeing success if you're employing those traditional techniques. So as you likely know by now, if you've attended any climate session or any of these sessions in this series, is that the vast majority of jobs are at startup companies. The vast majority of climate jobs are at startup companies. So these techniques aren't necessarily specific to climate they're specific to startup industries. If you are applying to a job at a startup, that job search is going to look drastically different than if you were to apply to a job at a larger corporation. So, again, given the fact that the vast majority of climate jobs are at startups, that's kind of where this logic comes into play. You need to employ startup job searching tactics to have the best luck at getting a job in climate because that is where the vast majority of jobs are. Again, there are climate jobs in corporations. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff on making your job a climate job. If you're looking at a large scale utility company, that's technically a climate job. These techniques may not be as applicable. They still would work, but those traditional job search techniques would work there because it's a larger corporation. They have recruiting teams. They are kind of going about their hiring the way that you would traditionally think that they would. So with that, over the last few years, there's been a lot of enhancement in AI, making it super easy to one-click apply to jobs, to submit your resume to one AI website, and it will automatically apply to hundreds of jobs for you. That being said, that may seem nice on the job seeker side, but it's actually coming back to kind of hurt you because these small companies are getting overrun with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. Again, startup teams, they are small teams. A lot of times these companies don't have in-house recruiting functions. They don't have HR. They have one person who's likely an engineering manager or a marketing lead, and they need to hire on top of all of their full-time responsibilities. So they quite frankly don't have the capacity or the time to go through those hundreds of applications. So in essence, they're relying on their network and they're never even really looking at those applications. So if you're just applying to jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed, climate-based, whatever it may be, you're not following up, you're not networking, your application, there's a high chance that it's going to get lost in the numbers of all of the other applicants. Another issue with traditional job techniques in climate is that there are less supporting roles in climate. This is probably something that you've seen by now if you're in business supporting roles like sales, marketing, product, something like that. Again, a lot of these companies are startups. They're founded by highly technical people, they're technical solutions, and these people are thinking about building out their technical teams first, and then later on, they want to think of supporting roles. But maybe they're not posted, maybe they're later on, you're not seeing them, whatever it may be. So there's less of them. And then lastly, a lot of early stage founders are relying on fractional employees. So they know that they need a marketing person for their highly technical solution. However, they don't have the capacity to bring that person in full time. So they're using agencies, they're using fractional people, they're using part time people, something, whatever that may look like. And then when they have the capacity for that role to be full time, a lot of times they already have that person. And then that person just becomes a full time person for them. So the key is really just getting your foot in the door, having these connections, networking. We'll get into this a little bit more. And then lastly is there's a lot of inconsistency in job titles. You've probably seen this if you're coming from a more traditional industry to climate and you're looking for a business development role. You may not see business development. You may see commercialization. You may see other types of roles that are just a little bit different. So you kind of have to have that insider knowledge to know what people are calling them, how you can find them, and then how you can get that job if it's never even posted. Cool. So what is unlearning, Mona?
Well, since we know traditional job search strategies often don't work, we need to unlearn some old behaviors. So, unlearning is an intentional examination of our mental models and taking action to work outside of them. It helps to challenge your assumptions. So, some of you may not have job searched in the last 10 years, and what worked in a more established industry 10 years ago may not be serving you very well right now. So we need to learn new things. And sometimes it helps to unlearn first and then add on the new information. It's helpful to ask yourself, how can I do this differently? So if after a few weeks you're not getting any traction, if people are ghosting you in your outreach, you might need to think about how you can go about it a little differently. It's important to create the time and the space to experiment. So a lot of times job seekers are very busy and they kind of have an ad hoc approach to the job search, and it's not as intentional as they would like it to be. So creating the time, creating the space, no matter how small, can yield results over time. And it's that those small things that we do every day that builds momentum in a job search. Talking with others, learning from them, and asking for advice is a great way to learn about how to be more effective in your job search. So we'll get into more of that here in just a bit. So adjusting expectations to maximize time currently is taking about 3 to 6 months. This is across all industries to accept an offer. I have many clients who tell me that their job searches are longer. Often it's because they're not intentional or it's a part-time job search. So it's about 3 to 6 months for people who are in a full-time job search. It helps to research to better understand the demand and need for your skill set. So going in blind and just hitting those job boards usually isn't very fruitful. So the more that you can do to educate yourself about the industry, the people, the players in the industry, the more helpful it can be in your search. From session one, knowledge about the climate space and your why can help you better articulate your value. This is true for career changers in all industries. A lot of times there's a focus on the old work and not on the new work. There's not a richness when they speak about the new direction. So tapping into that why and understanding what you're doing it'll allow you to tell a more convincing, memorable, and engaging story. Depending on how you ask the question, approximately 70 to 85% of offers require some sort of networking. The exact number is up for debate, but the take-home message is really clear. To improve your interview odds, networking helps. So, especially in climate, we have to get comfortable reaching out to people we don't know.
Awesome. You were done there, right, Mona? Cool. So yeah, this is kind of bringing Mona's point to life that she just brought up about how networking is really important. And we've talked a lot today and in the previous sessions that a lot of these jobs aren't posted and that they're filled through networking. And I know networking is something that you're probably tired of hearing everyone say, but as Mona just said, it is incredibly important and the numbers really do speak to it. So what I have on the slide here, and quickly to answer your question in the chat, Lisa, yes, we're recording the session and we're going to share out the slides and the recording afterwards. But on this slide, you can see on the left is the total number of US jobs that were posted in 2023. And then on the right is the total number of global climate jobs posted in 2023. So again, when we're looking at marketing, which is the red underline on the left here, the total number of jobs posted in the United States last year was 389,800. That's just a marketing manager position. However, in climate, globally, we only saw 1,073 climate marketing jobs posted all of last year. Obviously, this kind of makes sense. Climate's simply just a little subsector of the economy. But when we look at those numbers, only 1,000 compared to the 389,000 jobs globally versus the United States really just shows that there's not that many jobs posted. It is hard to get a job in this space, and a lot of these jobs are not getting posted. So again, if you're going that traditional route, you're going to have a really hard time. One, because these people are getting flooded with applications. Two, because there is not that many jobs. Also, you can see another example here with the software developer. In the US in 2023, we saw 1,795,300 jobs, whereas in climate, we only saw 1,263. So again, not putting this in here to discourage you. I'm putting this in here to kind of just show the scale and how there's a lot of people competing for a limited number of positions. And in order to be one of the people who lands those jobs, you definitely have to use out of the box methods. You have to network, you have to make a name for yourself, because there's not that many posted, and it is hard to get the ones that are posted. Perfect. So we talked a lot about what not to do, but how do you get a job in climate? The first step, and this is what we covered in session 1. So we can drop a link to session 1 in the chat. Also, I will share a link afterwards as well. I highly recommend that you go back and watch session 1 to really learn all about this step. How do you pinpoint your interest? How do you narrow down your search? When you first get introduced to climate, there's a lot of information out there. It's really overwhelming. You've probably heard me say, you've probably heard other people say, pinpoint a few solutions that you're interested in. Learn as much about those solutions as possible, but that's hard to do. So won't dwell on it too much here because we covered it in depth in session 1. But the key is to pinpoint your interest, narrow down your search, find a few solutions you're interested in, figure out where your skills are transferable. That's what we covered last session. Think through the timing of all of this, and then evaluate your risk tolerance. Are you wanting to go to a startup company? Do you want to go to a larger company? Think through all of that. Make sure you have a strong grasp before you start applying to jobs. The next step, of course, you guessed it, is to network. And this is what we are going to be covering next month in May. So make sure you attend for that session. Again, won't dive into it too much here. But the key really is make sure you're networking, making sure you're making that a priority in your job search. Cool. So here are a few examples to bring to life everything we have talked to up to this point. So if you take, for example, a seasoned B2B marketing, email marketing executive, say this person wants to get a job in climate. If they go the traditional route of going to job boards, click and apply, wait to hear back from an interview, and that's that, the problems that they're likely going to experience is that they're going to have a hard time finding those jobs to apply to. If you're looking at a climate job, it's going to be really difficult to find a B2B marketing executive position. As we talked about, these companies are small. They're looking for someone who has experience in multiple verticals. They're looking for a breadth of marketing experience, someone who can handle website, who can handle design, can handle email, rather than depth of really knowing email marketing well. So one, they're going to have a hard time finding that position. Second, startups oftentimes have a really hard time affording executive people. They're really expensive. If this person is coming from a big tech company, they're likely going to be used to a really high salary that a climate startup is likely not going to be able to match. However, some solutions for this person could be to look at larger and more established verticals. So that could mean energy or transportation. And again, look at those larger companies because they will likely have a more fleshed out marketing team and may have a need for someone who can really manage their email lists. Also, this person could consider fractional support. As I mentioned a few slides back, a lot of these companies, they do need help managing their email lists. However, it's not typically a full-time role at that stage for the company. So is it feasible for them to offer fractional consulting support? How about working for an agency? There's a few marketing agencies out there. Just think outside of the box is really the gist that I am trying to sell here. Next would be a generalist with experience in process and customer success. If this person was going a traditional route of looking for a job, some of the problems that they might run into are that a lot of generalist roles are never posted. When you're looking for jobs, you oftentimes see marketing this, you see a software developer backend this, you never really see, we need a jack of all trades. That's just not a job that's posted. Again, that's someone that's found through their network. That's someone that they've consulted with in the past and they bring them on full time. Also, it can be hard to pinpoint companies that need this background. Sometimes it can be glaringly obvious when a company's lacking some support, but maybe not on the outside. Customer success and process might not be a glaringly obvious need. So some solutions that this person could follow is, again, to pinpoint a few solutions that they're interested in, starting to get to know companies in that space. They can get some of that insider knowledge and have a better understanding of what their pain points and their bottlenecks are, and then better position themselves to be a solution to that problem. And then also this person could focus on smaller companies. So the opposite of what we just talked about, but companies that there's 4 or 5 people in the team, and they're gonna need someone who can come in, serve as business development, serve as the head of customer success, whatever that may look like, but knowing that they're likely going to need more assistance because they're a small team and they need someone who can do lots of different work in different avenues. Awesome. Over to you, Mona.
All right. So while you're in a job search, it can be helpful to assess your strengths and weaknesses to make you a more competitive applicant and to clarify your communication. So, who can tell us in the chat or come off mute what a SWOT analysis is? This is often used in business settings. Type it in the chat, come off mute. What is SWOT, or what does it stand for? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, absolutely. And how is this used in business or maybe in project management? Like, what's the point of doing a SWOT analysis? Type in the chat or come off mute if you like. What's the point of doing a SWOT analysis? This can make people more competitive. It can give a business a competitive edge. It can help streamline or problem solve and come up with new ideas in project management to reduce risk and costs. Yeah, absolutely. So you can apply that same method to your job search. And it can also help clarify your industry value, identify strategy. Yeah, really, really nice. So for our first activity, it's going to be an independent activity for about 10 minutes in this large room. So we're going to all stay together, begin a SWOT analysis of your personal brand. So map out your climate strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So just jot them down, a few strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's take about 10 minutes to do this. All right. So hopefully you identified some of your strengths. So this could be things like transferable skills or maybe a scrappy attitude. Weaknesses. So maybe you don't have any experience. That's usually the case for career changers. And of course, you might have limited industry contacts. Opportunities could be things like a climate certificate or maybe some pro bono or contract work. And then, of course, threats could be market trends. 2023 was a rough year to be job searching, and global events like pandemics and that kind of thing. So hopefully you've identified a few. This isn't intended to be exhaustive, just to get your first ideas down. So let's move our work into breakout rooms. So in groups of about 4, share your SWOTs and ask for suggestions. See if anyone can add to your SWOT. Each person will take about a minute to share, and then you'll get 1 minute of feedback from others, and we'll take a total of about 10 minutes or so. So let's get ready for some breakout rooms.
Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. All right. Looks like everybody's funneling back. Cool. I should put the welcome back slide.
Well, those always go by too quickly. There's never enough time, which is a good sign. That means people are engaged, I suppose. So sorry if people got caught off or you didn't get to go. Hopefully you're making some connections and you can follow up with people afterwards. Of course, you can always reach out to me as well. But there were some great questions in the few groups that I did get to jump in with. One was the threat of ageism, and I know a lot of you can probably relate, but ageism is alive and well. As I've said before, it's the one form of discrimination that's actually encouraged in the hiring process. Companies may say good things, but then when you actually watch their behaviors, they are discriminating, and they ask questions a certain way, They make assumptions. So it really is on us to communicate better the characteristics that they're looking for in a younger candidate, and to put that at ease right away in the resume, on our LinkedIn profile. They want to know that, depending on the level that you're applying to, but for career changers, unless you're going into a senior management or an executive position, you really need to talk about or show how you're coachable, how you've kept up in the industry. Maybe you've learned some new technical skills that you can showcase. But it helps to say those keywords and to have examples that demonstrate all the things they're looking for in a younger candidate. And we want to bring that energy and that enthusiasm and excitement. That's what they're wanting as far as a team member, especially on a small team. It could be a small company or a small team in a larger org. So showing them, and again, just quieting any doubts that they might have about your candidacy. So curious if you could throw it in the chat or come off mute. What are some suggestions that you got for your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Throw it maybe a word or two, brief sentence in the chat, or you can come off mute if you like. What are some suggestions you got? Anyone get some good suggestions? Lisa makes a good point. I hope that experience and maturity count for something. Yes, so we can also look for companies that are open, right, to a diverse staff, and ones that are going to encourage a multi-generational team. So we can look for companies who are also friendly. Yes. Uh, Okay, so Roman is saying that he got feedback on certificate programs, which is less of a commitment than going back to school. And you make an excellent point. Nearly all of my clients do not need to return to college or university. Sometimes they do need to brush up or learn the industry lingo. Certificate programs could be a great way to do that. So I know we got a question earlier from Roseanne. So some great certificate programs would be Terra.do or Climate Base. They have great introductory certificates to just understand the lay of the land and the company lingo, and how to promote, to use that knowledge to promote yourself better. Oh, Heidi, I'm not quite sure I understand. Do you want to come off mute? Maybe say a bit more?
Well, sure. I think with any kind of bias, if we're pushing against that bias, it's also simultaneously reinforcing it. So I think that there would maybe be some nuance on the strategy there to get that right.
Yeah,
But I also feel like there's a risk inherent in it.
yeah,
S-
yeah.
s-
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's just one strategy of many, right? And people's risk level is different. So someone who has more urgency, or maybe doesn't have the interest or the energy to push back as much, might think about smart strategies, for that quicker hire. So everyone's situation is different. That's only one strategy. But we when you're looking at a job ad or you're making a pitch to a founder, you just want to think about their mission, what they're looking for in their staff, and see if it's a good fit, right? It's all about fit. And if you're concerned about ageism or anything else, one strategy is to put them at ease by demonstrating, those particular characteristics that they're looking for, which really have nothing to do with age, right? We've talked about this before, but the most successful founders are in their 40s. So, sometimes people just have a false assumption and we need to prove them wrong. And unfortunately, in this culture, it really is on the applicant or the job seeker, the candidate to do that. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Good point. Really, really nice point. All right. So you can use your SWOT to iterate on your strategies, your job search approaches. And some questions that you might ask to get that going is, do I need to modify my target solutions or those verticals, my target companies, job titles? We talked about how climate often has different job titles. There's not a one-to-one translation. Or maybe your work preferences. I hear from a lot of clients that they will only go for remote roles. Well, remote roles are down 30% from last year. So maybe a hybrid is a smarter choice. Are you flexible for a move? But we might need to tweak our work preferences in order to get an offer. Is it time for a resume and LinkedIn revamp to better represent your value? So a lot of times career changers have a hard time communicating the value that they bring to climate. Do I have a networking strategy and am I tracking my results? Most clients don't. They're just kind of winging it. Some are actually doing keyword searches in their inbox, trying to find that communication from 3 months ago. So having one spot where you're tracking everything can be really helpful. Should I earn a climate certificate to close my industry gaps? This is true for all career changers. Certificates help. And people can get these sorts of, this sort of knowledge and the kind of project opportunities and that kind of thing on their own. Self-learning is really important. Your experience does count for something, but certificates signal to decision makers that you're serious about the thing that you're doing and that you've had a refresh or an update on your existing knowledge or experience. So certificates are a nice way to battle ageism and other things. And then what contract or volunteer opportunities can I see? So we talked about that fractional work, part-time work, contract work, volunteer work to help build the resume, strengthen the resume for your new direction. You're also networking, you're building your cred, and you can share it on LinkedIn. People start to really see you in a climate role. And goal setting can help you implement your action plan. So SMART goals in particular can help you maximize your job search. So they're helpful in that they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So goals should be concrete and tangible, not too lofty. And this is true in all sorts of coaching settings, not just career coaching. The smaller, the better. Goals should have an objective measure of success. So we don't want to just guess. We want to know if something is working or not. Goals should be challenging but achievable. So they should be stretching us towards more success, but in a way that is going to set us up for success. So we don't want them to be unattainable. They need to be meaningful to the larger objective. So they need to relate to the thing that you want to achieve. So in this case, get an offer, right? And it helps that they have a deadline with actionable timelines. So we can use this method of setting goals to help tweak our job search. So we can create a schedule of events and procedures to tweak the job search and to find more success. So step one would be to set a large goal. So as an example, and again, this is only one example, everyone's situation is unique. Hopefully it gets you thinking about your own particular situation. But one example might be, in the next 30 days, I will learn as much about climate as possible and pinpoint 3 climate solutions that I'm interested in. I will begin networking within these spaces with the goal of meeting 20 new people at target companies by the end of the month. So it's a goal that you set, it's intentional, it's very specific, and there's a deadline, there's a time frame. And then you can set actions to achieve those targets. So for example, I will research the climate industry for 30 minutes a day. So not too much, but consistent. And that will help you build more knowledge over time. Attend one industry, company, or meetup event every week. This one clients struggle with. But if you can push yourself to make that happen, you again will build some momentum. Make 5 new contacts a week with the goal of 20 connections by end of month. Have active conversations with approximately 5 companies at a given time. What I often notice is that clients will get hyper focused on one company, and they won't consider other things while they're seeing that one through. So it can be really impactful if you have multiple things cooking at the same time, because you don't know where things are going to fizzle. So if you've got lots of things cooking, then odds are you're going to find more success with one opportunity compared to another. So it's important to have multiple things cooking. You don't want so many, though, that you feel distracted in your job search. Setting those small but achievable numbers can be helpful. And then I will take notes and track these conversations and send a follow-up every 3 months. This will help me stay on top of these goals. So setting SMART goals can help you be more successful in your job search and build that confidence and momentum. And it does take time. It does take time. All right, so hopefully you have some actionable items. You want to challenge your assumptions, take stock of your unique strengths and weaknesses, empower yourself through industry research and networking, create an effective action plan that maximizes your time and builds interview momentum. Keep what is working and toss what is not. And I think really important in a long job search is to celebrate your small wins along the way. So, if someone reached back out to you and you're excited about that company, that is a win. That is a win.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Celebrating all of the milestones of I sent 20 messages, but 2 people responded. So that is huge. That's getting you somewhere. And you only need one response to ultimately get that job. So definitely super helpful. Cool. Awesome. I know we are about at time, but if anyone has questions, Mona, do you have a hard stop at 10 for you? Cool. Mona and I can stay for a little bit longer. If anyone has questions, feel free to come off of mute or drop them in the chat. But for anyone who has to leave at the top of the hour, thanks so much for joining us. Our next session is coming up in May. I'll drop a link in the chat to that in 1 second, but hopefully we can see you there. And if not, I will send a follow-up recording after. So we'll include a lot of links to the resources we mentioned, the recordings, all of that. So thank you so much. But if anyone has questions, your time is now. Thank you. Let me drop the link to next month's session while I'm thinking about it.
So I have one question. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so in the SWOT thing, like one of the thread that I put was Canada, because I found that looking for a potential new position, it's either like you have to move to the US or move to Europe. But in Canada, which from the outside is this green magical place when it's not really, but that's something that I found that's been really like hard to find stuff happening in Canada, even in terms of networking and things like that. So I was wondering if you had any opinion on that.
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, Natalie. Go ahead.
No, you go first. You got it. I'm gonna drop the link to the other sessions while you do that.
I hear this a lot from Canadians, so you're not alone. And it really does kind of require that scrappy mindset. So I'm curious, is it Roman or Romaine?
Well, technically it's Romain because I'm French, but I've been going by
Romain.
Romain since I moved. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you just hitting the job boards, or are you doing some of the networking strategies that we suggested?
Well, I'm just starting right now, pretty much. Like I took a leave of absence from work, so I'm starting to put this time to good use.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think all those things that Natalie reviewed, as far as going to events, talking with people, pitching your ideas, taking on some volunteer and pro bono work or contract or fractional work, is a nice start. And if you think back to, if you went to college or university, if you think back to your junior year or senior year, you probably did an internship or two. So we kind of need to tap that university ethos and bring it to the new job search, which can be a little tricky. Yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone. I hear this a lot from Canadians.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Also do know that a lot of the companies that Climate People has worked with, they are open to hiring people in North America. So that's an option too. Like I know a lot of times it's easier for them to get the visa for North America than it is elsewhere. So that I would not entirely eliminate that. Yeah, so I would look into some of the companies that are hiring in the US as long as it's remote. Especially, did you say you're in Toronto or the West Coast?
I'm in Vancouver, so the West
Okay.
Coast.
So then yeah, try to like time that obviously with like the time zones. So you don't have to be waking up at like super early in the morning. But yeah, I know we have placed probably like 4 people from Canada in US jobs. What's your background in again?
I'm a software engineer.
Okay, so yeah, they all have been engineers as well. So I think that would be advantageous as well. Yeah.
Great.
And then I
Thank you.
know NCJ has like Canada group, and I know someone birthday said in the chat that there are climate change groups based in Montreal. So no, you're not there, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to get involved locally as well.
Thanks.
Yep. Cool. Does anyone else have questions? Anna.
I have one. I would like to ask you, for example, how to promote yourself when you are in a network event, because for me it's so hard. Like I'm good talking with people, but I don't know how to promote myself. Like I'd like to know what they are doing, what their company is, but I don't know how to match, for example, my skills with them and create that opportunity.
Yeah. What is your background in? What's your
I'm a strategic designer.
structural designer, you said?
No, a strategic, like a
Oh,
product
okay.
designer.
Yep, yep,
Yes.
yep. Okay, yeah, I think, I mean, that's hard. That's the hardest part is how do you sell yourself to a company? And I think so much of that comes from practicing it, having conversations, really mastering your elevator pitch. I think the opportunity is when you're talking to them, you're introducing, you say, this is my background, give them a 30-second spiel on your background, and then they're going to open it up. And then, yeah, I would say also the key here is, and sometimes this can be hard in person, and the key one is to not put too much pressure on yourself. It doesn't all have to happen in one conversation. If you meet them, you get their LinkedIn, and you feel like you didn't fully pitch yourself in that 30-minute conversation, you can message them and you can continue to have conversations. But I'd say the second key is in that conversation, try to understand what their pain points are in terms of how you can help them. So ask questions of like, what have been your strategic design bottlenecks? Where are you noticing that your company's having a hard time doing X, Y, or Z? And then that gives you the opportunity to be like, oh, okay, in my past, I've done this, and I can see that impacting your company in this way. So ask them, like, what are your bottlenecks? I think that's probably like the easiest way to position yourself because they're setting you up for that. Yeah, Mona, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement there. And that's great advice. If you can research the people in addition to the company, and understand where they're coming from and their career pathway, if you put your curiosity on them and learning about them, then it's easier once you ask a few questions about them and how they got there and their pain points and all of that, then it's easier for you to share that information about yourself. So sometimes just tapping your curiosity, trying to get to understand them better can help you talk about your situation a bit better. And you can, again, it's all about fit. So, how do you look for that overlap in serving each other, right? That reciprocity and in that acquaintance. Yeah, it's a tricky one. That takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
Do we have time maybe for one more, Natalie?
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else have a question? And Rosanna, are you still in here? No, you left. Okay. I'll follow up with you via email about your question because I completely forgot about your certification question.
I
But yeah,
think
if you
I
know-
got it, Natalie.
Okay.
I mentioned Terra and climate
Sure,
base.
sure. Yeah. And I dropped
as
that link to the Green
examples.
Biz article too.
Yeah.
So hopefully we addressed it.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have any questions? If not, feel free to add both Mona and myself on LinkedIn. And I'm always the type of person that as soon as I hang up, all my questions come to me. So feel free to send them over in a message too.
Absolutely. Hope to see you over LinkedIn.
Yes. Alrighty. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this Friday. Hope you have a great weekend and we will see you in May. Thank you.